question back. So for those who are just tuning in, welcome. This is the second week of your post QLA, your after Quantum Living Advanced coaching session. This is to talk about how we are continuing to walk this path of the quantum living lifestyle. It's an opportunity for us today on the second session to review the chakras, to talk about their blockages, and more also importantly, as in a post-event curriculum, the application of that. So how are we now living our lives after this? Because very often we come back, we come to QLA or Quantum Living Advanced and we pop, right? So we go in from fear, we pop, and then we go guilt and pop, and shame and lack of self-worth and pop. And what happens is that every time we do this, neurons that fire together, they're wired together. And as I always say, 2 Quantum Living Advanced per year, that's 1 every 6 months. That's 4 days out of 365 days. That's 1.09%. So that's 1% personal development and spiritual development every single year. So it's not really a lot, but because we're working in the quantum realm, it's palpable. So we start today by answering a few questions, and then we're going to get into the review. And the incredible Rosita had some questions, and I think the word inertia was used. And so if you don't mind, just ask that question, and then I'll start by explaining what inertia is and hopefully be able to answer your question, my friend.
Yes. So last week you mentioned inertia, where you have old issues in the tissues and then it comes out. Mm-hmm. And that's got me written all over it. I've experienced a lot of that in the last week. And I wonder, I don't know, I guess everybody's different, but is there a time frame as to what I can expect, how long that's gonna go on for? Or what is I've tried looking it up a little bit. I couldn't quite find what I was looking for, and so I'm quite interested into like what it is and how it works.
Excellent point. So with that in mind, would you just clarify for myself and everyone watching what specifically is happening? Because we understand inertia is kind of like the aftermath of energy, and it's kind of like the laid back energy that still keeps on coming after we think we've collapsed it, which is what many of us would be experiencing right now. But can you give us some clarity on what that means in your life specifically? Are you talking about relationships? Are you talking about your finances? Are you talking about your emotions? What do you clarify a bit more in detail for us, please?
So I've experienced quite a bit of anger in the last week.
Mm-hmm.
Issues.
More than normal?
Sorry?
More than normal?
No, actually, I was like this a while back. I've worked on it even before I came to the weekend, and I thought I'd move past it. I recognized that what I was doing and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I'm noticing that it's coming back, and the difference is now that I'm more the observer. Like, I am angry, but I can observe that I am.
Nice.
But I really struggle snapping out of it. Mm-hmm. And then my voice is gone. Like, I've had some throat issues with thyroid and stuff in the past, but my voice just disappears, and it gets really high, and I feel uncomfortable in my lungs and stuff. And I haven't done anything strenuous today, and I know this is part of speaking the truth. But so this has come. It's been quite. Present in this last week, those two things for me personally.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, first of all, because that's real and vulnerable, and I think we all can relate to how we can be feeling anger from time to time. And the first path to self-mastery is the path of self-discovery. So give yourself some credit for the fact that you're becoming not the mind or the body, but the observer of the mind and the body, and then asking questions, what is coming up for me? Anger is normally either a significant detoxification process of the liver. If you've really cleansed your body heavily physically, that can really be the case. And also on the metaphysical components, of course, the quality of our life is the quality of our most prominent and dominant emotion. We know that. And so we know that the byproduct emotion of either sadness, grief, or heartbreak can be, or disappointment as well, can be anger. So is there any component in your life where you're experiencing, or where you've recognized that the core of the emotion might come from something that has upset you or broken your heart or deceived you or made you sad in any way?
Yes. So my mum passing away was quite significant event in my life. This happened 19 years ago. A lot evolved around that, but also not being able to fall pregnant more recently. And those things are really, those are, so that's definitely
pregnant yet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All of our cells are listening. Good call. I like how you just put on a big smile on your face then. Just change
Yes.
everything.
I know I can feel that I'm close. I can tell you guys, other people think I'm crazy, but I feel that it's close. So.
Well, I don't know if we do think that you're crazy. I mean, well, we've been to quantum living. We kind of know how it works. We've even had the incredible Christina stand up and share as she's a clinician. She's a fully trained clinician herself and works in the clinical field. And she stood up in front of 60 of us and just said, "Hey, for the first time in a long time, I've got my cycle again, and that's because fear and guilt."
I remember that.
That issues in the tissues get collapsed and they leave our bodies when we polarize that emotion. They depolarize that emotion. So firstly, thank you for sharing. And I think for everyone listening, this is not just the one-on-one session. This is for everyone, because every time we listen to something like this, I know that we all have experienced sadness and loss and very often also anger. So, but my question was more so to you, Rosita, as in what's the underlying emotion now? I know your mother passed. I know you're not having a chance to have children just yet. What is the emotion on a day-to-day basis? Is it anger, or is it something deeper than anger?
No, I actually had a call with John from Melbourne today as from your team, and I figured out this morning by him asking the right questions that it's actually guilt.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, because he was just asking a question. I go, oh yeah, right, thanks. So that, guilt.
Yeah, and you know what, very, very powerful, because the quality of our life is the quality of the questions that we regularly ask. And John is well trained on asking good questions. And if that's had such an impact in your life, then that's actually, effectively come together as a coaching session. So when you've realized it, and guilt drives the anger, let's not go into too much detail, but the purpose of this now is really to get to the bottom of the guilt. Now, do you remember the exercise in QLA when we collapsed the guilt?
Yes, very well.
So what I'm going to ask and suggest that you do is to go back to the curriculum and do the exact same work. Ask, what are you guilty about? What's the number one core guilt? Because there's always another level. Hey, for everyone watching, is it not always another level, right? There's always another level. And but the coolest thing is that we know on the Hawkins scale of consciousness, Dr. Hawkins, MD, PhD, has proven that the different emotions vibrate and oscillate at particular frequencies. From 0 to 1,000, we have Jesus and Buddha and similar characters at the top with pure enlightenment, and then the very lowest of the low of emotions, one of the lowest ones, at 30 out of 0 to 1,000, and the love vibrates at 528 hertz, is guilt at 30. That is the byproduct of feeling guilty, is of course being angry, because we feel like we've actually been more destructive than being of service, and the soul's desire is of course to be of service to ourselves and other people. So go back to the exercise. Now, this is relevant for everyone watching. If you're experiencing anger, if you're experiencing sadness, if you're experiencing guilt, if you're experiencing fear, you have the curriculum available. Come back and do the workshop. But in the meantime, if there's no workshop available for you, then pop into your journal and answer the same questions. What am I guilty about? Where am I polarized in the brain? Where am I perceiving and believing that what I did or should have done carries with it more drawbacks than benefits? What kind of benefits and transformational experiences would the people that I feel guilty about have missed out on if it wasn't for me? And since life happens for us, not to us, and everything happens by divine design, we are conscious souls, not victims of our history, but masters of our destiny. We can actually breathe through the experience, sit with the guilt, wholeheartedly, not running. We do not emotionally bypass. What we suppress will be expressed. But if we can sit with the emotion and wholeheartedly feel that emotion, and then do that collapse exercise by simply doing, the depolarization process of the mind, not perceiving that there is more one side than the other, but in equilibrium, there's nothing but thank you and I love you. And I would also say sitting with the emotion of guilt, sitting with the emotion of anger, practicing yoga, and maybe even getting a boxing bag.
Yes. All right. Thanks.
Because that, you got to get that energy out. You guys know what I'm talking about? That energy is in there. You got to get it out.
Yeah. All right.
And there's a physical component to that. So, but you started moving your body a bit when I mentioned the physical detox. Have you been physically detoxing lately, or how's it?
I did the detox before the weekend.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So guys, I would really recommend that you do this detox regularly, obviously, because, you know, we retox every day. You need to get a clean water filter, proper water filter. You need to go organic. You need to wash your vegetables, get the chemicals off. You need to just look at all these fundamental principles. And they're in the detox program. I talk about them over and over again. So even if you're not doing the detox program, you want to jump in there and listen to the audio from time to time, because there are a lot of principles in there that are fundamentally important. So if you're cleansing and the liver's purging, very often the emotional anger also comes out.
Yeah.
No?
All right. Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Makes sense. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for being in the hot seat, Rosita.
Thank you.
All right, guys, let's get into it. For those who are just joining, welcome. Love you so much. We have another little bit of time to get into the review of the chakras. Now, we know that neurons that fire together, they wire together. So we're going to use a little bit of a repetition. What are we going to use? No, that's good. I didn't hear everyone. What are we going to use?
Repetition.
That's right. Thank you. And I just want to see you engaging, because I know that you're present. And if you're cooking and you've got your camera off, or you've got a little one on the arm or something, still repeat it, because neurons that fire together, they wire together. We know that neuroplasticity can go as high as we want. We've heard the story of the taxi driver in Melbourne that speaks 33 different languages and can listen to a language for 20 minutes and it all molds together and he can speak this language. So, people ask, how high can I go into enlightenment? How deep can neuroplasticity go? It just depends on how much you do the work. That's the bottom line. And that's one of my main intentions for being on these 6 weeks calls with you, and not just to help you integrate into life, but to really create those pathways, those habits, those neurological imprints into the nervous system, that we continue to do this work and walk this path. So let's review. We go back to the very first start of quantum living. We did a visit into Muladhara, and Muladhara is our root chakra. Think about the color of the root chakra. Think about the color of the root. It is red, one red. So now neuroplastically created in your reality, a new quantum awareness is you seeing red. And when you see red, the color red, it automatically triggers parts of your brain to feel grounded, to feel safe, to feel stable, to feel secure. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is not just doing a review for you in the different chakra energy centers, but I'm also helping your brain train into unconscious competence for you to see red, one red. And then right away, when you do that unconsciously, without the need to bring any awareness to the energy, you're already feeling grounded, trusting, and knowing that you're safe and guided every step of the way. So that's one red one. It used to be, and for some of us, for most of us, honestly, it's still blocked by fear. And fear is, as we know, false evidence appearing real. When we go through the recognition and we would really start to see that source consciousness, truth, love, wholeness, and oneness, a unified field of divine intelligence, there is no such thing as fear. Fear is existent in this three-dimensional realm of the senses, and nothing of the senses will ever satisfy the soul. Bruce Lee said we must face our fears to become free. I say, when we let go of fear, the truth will appear, so simple and clear. So when you are faced and challenged with fear, you take a step back, like Rosita said so beautifully before, becoming the mind of the observer, seeing the fear for what it really is when your third eye is open and you begin to see, and I mean really see, not clouded by emotion, but seeing clearly, you can respond to it with a much greater degree of conscious control. So it used to be blocked by fear, now we breathe. More breath, the anchor to the present time conscious moment to live in eternity is the breath, because that breath is bringing us into the now. And that's really the only time that we can bypass time and space, by breathing in the present moment. So it's a neuroplastic habit of breathing consciously. So you might want to take a big breath now, because I know that I speak a lot and pretty quick and sometimes forget out my breath. So when we come to the root chakra, used to be blocked by fear. Now we breathe into it. We feel safe, grounded, and secure. And we know that we can do quantum living advanced over and over again. As I say, at least every 6 months. That's 1% personal development every year. If you do 4 years out of 365, and giving you an opportunity to reconnect with your family, to hang out with your fellow students and graduates, to revisit the curriculum, to have the exercises, to touch upon the field, and come home, as I say. We're launching a graduate special now, so it'll be really exciting. It's going to be out in the next, I said 48 hours or so, and then you can jump on and get a ticket for the next quantum living, which will be, I believe, quite inexpensive. And so when we really understand fear for what it really is, we still catch ourselves being quite overwhelmed by fear, even though we know intellectually that it's not real. But it's not the intellectual understanding just, it's also the emotional practice. The emotional practice of surrendering, you might want to take a note on this, the emotional practice of surrendering, the emotional practice of letting go, the emotional practice of trusting that shit is going to work out for you. It has so far, and it will continue to do so. So just let go of anything that you're trying to control, and of course be persistent, because you have goals in life and your soul wants to go places, and so it will. But let go of the need to have, and let go of a thing called attachment. Expectation. Let go of all expectation. When we expect, we get disappointed and hurt when we don't receive. I heard a story once, and I must move on to the next chakras, but this is, I think, a useful one. A man once said to Buddha, Buddha asked, what do you want? How can I help? And the man said, I want to be happy. And Buddha said, well, first remove the want, for that is desire, then remove the I, for that is ego, and all you're left with is happiness. It's an interesting little concept of letting go and trusting the journey. Second chakra, 2 orange, 2, very powerful, 2 orange, 2, Swadhisthana, responsible when open and alive and vibrant, allowing us to feel creative, sensual, sexual, free, being in flow and having fun. It's the young, for me, when I go through the sounds as in a lum for the first chakra, vam for the second chakra, when I get into 2 orange 2, a vam, I just go, yay, and I just do a little funky dance, because I'm sensual, I'm sexual, I'm free, I'm creative, I'm flowing, I don't give a fuck, I'm just going to be myself. So I just do a little happy dance, right? I just want to feel that in my body, because all of my cells are listening. So I go, vam, I do a little shake or whatever I do, right? And then I'll activate that using the sound bum. Unfortunately, as Rosita mentioned before, the second chakra is so often blocked by guilt. Also part of it is shame. Obviously shame for the guilt and guilt for the shame. So when we recognize that it's blocked by that, we know that guilt is a perception of what we did and think we shouldn't have done, or what we think we should have done but actually didn't do, which ended up hurting someone very often, carries with it more drawbacks than benefits. That's the bottom line. That's the perception and the polarization in the brain. And we know that in the soul, in the soul's consciousness happening by divine design, there is no such thing. So even though we feel so heartedly this thing called guilt, we can sit with it to bypass it, but we polarize it. We depolarize the brain, and we let go of guilt, because we know that we've done the best we could with the best we had, and it's led us up to this point onwards. And in fact, here's the biggest fucking thing with guilt. Whatever you did that you think you shouldn't have done or didn't do but think you should have done creates a why. It creates a void. That void is, I think I fucked up, I hurt someone, I shouldn't have done it, or whatever it is, and that void drives the value. You collapse the guilt and you see it happening for you, not to you, then you understand that the stronger the why, the higher you fly. So now you have a spiritual reasoning to follow, a fucking guiding GPS of loving service for the rest of your life because of what you did or didn't do. And that one thing in the past happened for you, not to you, but you can still use that lesson for the rest of your life. Remember that. So you always want to serve people that you've hurt because you want to make it right. The soul wants to do it right. So exactly this thing called guilt and what you did or should have done is exactly the thing that you need in your life right now to fucking persist until you succeed. Which brings us into the third chakra, 3, yellow 3, the warrior. The warrior center, my friends. This is where the power and drive sits. This is for you if you have a habit of starting things and not finishing them. This is for you if you've been in your feminine for too long. And I'm not talking male and female, I'm talking masculine and feminine. So this is the trusting and knowing in the heart and the love that everything's okay. In green, 4 green, you're just like, oh, it's fine. That's all good. I don't need to. I'll just see what happens. I love you. Everything's cool. That surrender feminine is really beautiful in the heart, but lower than that in 3, yellow 3, the power center is masculine drive. And it's not just masculine energy, because it is also our emotional center, which very often has a lot of feminine energy to it. But the 3rd energy center, the money pura, is directly related to personal power, perseverance, feeling and trusting and knowing that we have the power within us to go forth and claim what is ours in the universe. Blocked by shame and lack of worth and lack of self-value. So we know that those people that don't value themselves send out a universal signature to the field, of which the field don't value you either, because everything around us is indeed a projection of our own consciousness. So again, if I'm going a bit too fast, you might want to review this later, because what I just said, I think, is a fundamental universal truth proven by quantum physics that's important to take a note of. What we express is what we get back, and what's around us is a projection of us. And so we know that to be true. So before we move any further, I'd like to just backtrack a little bit, because I did not mention that the first chakra, the root chakra, Muladhara 1, red 1, is related to the area of life called physical health. So with physical health, when we surrender fear, we upgrade our emotional signature, according to the Hawkins scale, and we also allow ourselves to move into a state of love. It's directly related to the area of life called physical health, which has an upgrade in our physical well-being. So here's the key. If you want to keep practicing the quantum living lifestyle, and let me give you some insights as to the power of working with either of our quantum coaches. These guys, and now 2 ladies in full training as well, are incredibly powerful in holding you accountable for the action steps needed to be taken regularly in order to master this lifestyle. And so when it comes to the 1 red 1, or the root chakra, the direct applications of that into your physical reality in terms of the area of life called physical health is eating well, moving well, and thinking well. Eat well, move well, think well. 2 orange 2, the applications into your life in order for you to have an opportunity to master mind and emotional state, which is the area of life that's directly related to the 2nd chakra, is an opportunity to, when you change your mind and emotional state, it's starting with a gratitude journal and really cultivating gratitude regularly, because gratitude is a very high frequency emotion, very closely related to love, which is around 500 hertz, compared to 30, which is the guilt that blocks the 2nd chakra. So it's about the mind and emotional state. It's about learning to breathe. It's about learning to be present. It's now following through and seeing how your stuff that you've implemented in the 1st chakra is manifesting into your life. And gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. We get into the 3rd chakra, as I just mentioned before. It's directly related to the area of life called money, money, money. Isn't funny. Really important to understand the money is energy. It goes from what's depreciated to what's appreciated. And when we fall in love with ourselves again, we learn, in fact, that we are a spirit or a soul, and we are, in fact, the core signature of our ontological being is the soul, the state of unconditional love. And so when we feel unworthy, it's a direct incongruence to our own spiritual essence, which is why we don't attract more abundance. And so when we recognize that money is not going to pour into our lives until we stand in our power and find our worth, we begin to claim our worth by really knowing who we really are, and then recognizing the fact that money is energy, because when it's depreciated to what's appreciated. So when we start to appreciate ourselves again, money is going to pour back into our lives. It's really standing in that knowing that we are beautiful and worthy just the way we are. 4, a green 4, the power of that beating heart, 65 times bigger and stronger when measured with an ECG, is the energy of the heart compared to the energy of the brain. We know that the brain is really powerful, but all suffering begins and ends in the mind, as Eckhart Tolle used to say, or does say. And of course, my favorite is, if you're in your head, you're dead, as Tony Robbins says. And I think that's a really good quote, because I lived in my head for a long time, and I certainly wasn't living in the heart as I am the majority of the time now. So the 4 green 4 is love, presence, healing, joy, compassion, and gratitude. They're the cardinal pillars of the heart. And in order to simply, as I say, and don't underestimate the sentences that when I say the only language of the soul, the only language of your soul's consciousness is thank you, I love you. Don't underestimate that, because thank you, I love you is the cardinal emotional signatures of the heart. So if you say thank you, I love you for anything that has created fear, you will pop from fear, let's say 100 to about 500. If you say thank you, I love you for what you did or should have done in guilt, you go from 30 to 500. You guys with me? If you say thank you, I love you, to lack of self-worth and lack of self-value, you leave about 150 to 180 and you pop to 500. So what I'm doing is I'm literally bringing the three-dimensional realm of the survival centers, the three energy centers. I'm bringing that straight up to the heart for you by thank you, I love you. That's why I say that the language of the soul is nothing but thank you, I love you. So if you can't go back to anything in your life, here's the bottom fucking line. If you can't go back to anything and everything in your life and wholeheartedly say, and not just say, but really feel thank you, I love you, and there's a polarization in the brain, it's stuck in the body, and we will get sick. And so the more we recognize that we have to go back with nothing but thank you, I love you, the more work we have to do. And the more you go back with thank you, I love you, well, what's the byproduct? You're living in the emotional signature of receivership and gratitude. You guys with me so far? So it's just neuroplastically creating this pathway, going back, popping again, QLA one more time, popping again. And as I say, how high do you want to take it? It depends on how far you want to go. How awakened do we want to really walk this earth? Unconsciously, but so aware. So it's blocked by grief and sadness. We know grief and sadness blocks the heart. So we rip that open by thank you, I love you. And then we implement that into our lives. We go and ask the question, how can I love more? How can I serve more? How would love respond? And we bring that into all of our relationships, because the green 4 and the sound of it being yum, yum. The sound of the third one is rum. So that's the warrior. Rum. And yum is the sound of your open, beautiful, beating heart that beats and all it asks in return is that you notice it. Bring awareness and attention and gratitude to it. So that heart used to be, and for some of us still is blocked by grief, sadness, and anger. And we surrender that by saying, thank you, I love you, and really recognizing that source consciousness is the real truth here, not the sadness. And then we really pour more love into our relationships. We pour love first into our own relationship with ourselves. If you don't recognize that you do you first, then you lower your vibrational frequency. I spoke in both Perth and Margaret River and several cities in WA just recently, and I had about 150 in the room, and I just got into total warrior mode, and I said, excuse me, but is it okay if I speak my truth? And they kind of went like, yeah, maybe. And I just went ruthless. I just went, if you are not fucking taking responsibility for your life, if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't put yourself first now, you are lowering your vibration and you are hurting your children. And I just paused, and this lady from the back just stood up and went, you! She just loved it. Because that's the fucking bottom line. We have to take care of ourselves first, because if mama ain't happy, if daddy ain't happy, and nobody happy. So you got to take care of your own vibration. Do yourself first. Don't get up in the morning and start, making coffee for someone else and, go to work and do work. No, you get up in the morning, you go to bed an hour earlier, you get up an hour early, you go for a walk, you meditate, you stretch, you breathe, you whatever you got to do, you do you. And once you've done you, then you can start. Sound good? Sound fair? Deal. We walk this path, and we practice what we preach, and we do us first. So first, loving relationships with ourselves, and then it flows into everyone else, because now we have upgraded our lower frequency, and now we can serve with more love without draining that energy. All right? Then we get into 5, blue 5, very powerful, this thing called Vishuddha, which is the 5th energy center out of the throat chakra. The throat is responsible for speaking our truth. It's responsible for us living our truth, being our truth, sharing our truth, and being able to speak the truth in the moment. Not shying away from conflict by saying, oh, that's okay. It's actually taking the breath and saying, you know what? I'm just not comfortable with that. Or you know what? I haven't spoken my truth. I need to speak my truth. And it's really going back into relationships as well, because guilt and truth very often go hand in hand. Because if you've done something, or if you lied to someone, and you haven't shared the truth with them, you can feel guilty about that. And then very often you might want to go back and share the truth, shed light and love into using truth into your past, and definitely making sure that you're practicing, speaking, living, walking your truth in the present moment and also for the future. And one of the truths is really, what does my soul really want? Who am I really? Who am I really? Is that not a good question? Who am I really? For me, it's just like, oh, years and years and years of exploration. Now I think I'm getting a little bit closer. I'm just teacher, healer. And now also loving father. That's the bottom line. So it's not too much to it, but it goes out in many different ways. A ninja warrior, an athlete, and all these things. But really, bottom line, I'm a teacher, healer, and loving father. And a bit of a warrior. I think that's important to put in a bit of warrior there. So that's 5 truths. 5 is blocked by lies. Lies we tell other people, lies we tell ourselves, and the lives that we live. The lives of inauthenticity and incongruency that shroud and cloud our own magnificence. Our own magnificence is the truth of our own existence, that we are born into this world to be expressed in unique physical form. And for those on a mission being themselves, there is no competition. That's the bottom line. So when you really recognize who you really are, it's beautiful. You get to walk this path, shining your light, and then, as Marianne Williamson said, unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear when we truly become ourselves again. That's why I think blue 5 is important to practice. Really feeling that blue in the throat. And of course, may I say, the blue 5 is directly related to personal development. Now we know that the best personal development we can do on ourselves is personal development of finding ourselves. The unexamined life is not worth living, as Henry David Thoreau used to say. And I think it's important to recognize that in our truth is us. It's being ourselves. That's the best personal development there ever is. That's why I've linked those two, and it makes sense when we come to see that, when we become ourselves is the best personal development. In fact, spiritual evolution is really what it is, into physical form. And then we surrender those lies. Then we get into 6. This is really powerful. 6, indigo colored light. The color of the clear night sky is that of the third eye. I call it the first eye. It's really the first eye. I call it the all-seeing eye, because the third eye is, or the first eye is really the responsible entity, also call it anatomy in terms of a pineal gland. It's a tiny little pea-sized gland that sits at the back of your brain, at the top of your brainstem. You kind of feel this little tingling sensation in between your eyebrows when the third eye is open. And in reptiles, as I say, the third eye has a retina, a cornea, and a lens. It's an actual eye. The third eye, when awakened, when open, is responsible for giving us insight. May I just turn your attention inwards when I say insight, okay? Insight as well as outsight, if you will. Intuition and inner wisdom. It is opening that all-seeing eye to see things, and I mean really seeing things the way they actually are. Because when we change the way we see things, the things we see change. Here's another one, a new one that I just learned the other day. It fucking blew me away. You might want to write this down. Einstein said this. Yeah, that guy, Einstein, that dude. He said this. When we begin to see the invisible, we begin to achieve the impossible. Oh, how good is that? When we begin to see the invisible, we begin to achieve the impossible. Because what we see, we can truly believe. Neurons that fire together, they wire together. And we recognize that the all-seeing eye, the third eye, is the pineal gland. It's the gland, just so you know, it's a gland in the brain that secretes melatonin and many other, serotonin and many other hormones. And really what it does is it regulates the sleep-wake cycle. So when we are in that dream state and we are not in this physical reality, the third eye, and even this is very powerful. When we meditate and we bring our awareness up the spine to the third eye, we start to awaken the third eye by bringing fresh oxygenated blood and energy to the third eye. And then we get into the breathing exercise, in through 1, out through 7, in through 1, out through 7. And what we're doing is we're breathing the circular energy of both oxygen and energy up the spine. And as that energy bypasses the pineal gland, there are tiny little crystals. They're called calcite crystals. They're in neurology called stacked rhombohedrons. and they are little antennas with calcite crystals on them. And when that energy comes flowing through like a whirlwind, in through one, out through seven, in through one, out through seven, those tiny little calcite crystals start vibrating. They begin to oscillate, which effectively acts as an antenna. It's like a receiver. And that antenna just sits there. And when these calcite crystals oscillate and vibrate, it can start to bring in the information of the field. That's why we call it having profound vision. Not vision because of eyesight, but vision because of true vision from the third eye. That's when you begin to see things, not just consciously when you're aware for what they really are, as magic instead of matter, as a spirit and soul instead of physical self, or as happening for us and to us. There's a big one with the third eye. That's a real insight of really knowing who we are, and as in being in spiritual training for our awakening, and not being a victim of our history and bullshit past, but seeing things the way they really are. There's a huge fucking hack of the third eye. But also really beginning to understand that when the third eye is open, we can begin to download incredible visions. We can begin to see things within people. Our intuition begins to awaken. And instead of having a conversation and saying, yeah, I like him or her based on what they said or what they did, we can have an intuitive feeling of what's good for us. We connect with our loved ones from a distance. We begin to think and breathe and feel with a heightened level of consciousness and awareness. Because really, when we begin to see, when the third eye is not blocked by the illusion of us being separated, by the illusion of the three-dimensional world of materialism and physical self being real, but everything in fact being energy. When you think about quantum physics, proven for the first time in 300 years, we've been able to bridge the gap between science and spirituality. When you really look at quantum physics and you begin to study it and you begin to understand it, what really happens automatically is that the third eye opens, because now you begin to see and understand the way the universe actually works. So quantum physics and the science of quantum mechanics goes hand in hand and is fully congruent with an awakening of your third eye, with that oscillation, that vibration from the pineal gland. And then we begin to become what I truly feel more aware of our emotions and aware of our brain and our minds and our thinking and all the energy around us. Because when we see everything as energy, we don't just look at the person, we don't just look at the circumstance, we feel into it, we sit with it in silence and stillness, contemplating, and you'll get the visions that you need. You'll download it in the moment if you need them. Just become aware. Quiet the mind, learn to breathe. More breath. Then we pop, of course, right into the crown. This is one of my absolute favorites. When you get into the crown chakra, and by the way, the Sanskrit name for the heart is Anahata, the throat is Vishuddha, the third eye is Anjna or Anya, and the crown is Sahasrara. The sound for the heart I mentioned before is Yam. The sound for the throat is Hum. The sound for the third eye is The sound for the crown is Om. Okay? And then we pop into the crown, this 1,000-petal lotus flower blooming with divine purple light, which is our interconnectedness, our connection to source. When our crown is open, we walk this path knowing who we are. We know our purpose. And it's really a big thing for a lot of people that haven't found their purpose or don't quite know exactly what it is. It's because the crown is not open enough, or the crown is open, but your body is so conditioned and your mind is so conditioned that you don't understand the language that's coming through. So when we recognize that the crown is our connection to source, it is truly our connection to the essence of who we really are. And if we are connected to who we really are, then there's no missing. We know exactly who we are and what we're here to do. And this is part of the reason why we breathe in through 1 and out through 7, because when that lower energy leaves the survival centers of 1, 2, and 3, travels through the heart into that quantum reality of love and gratitude, into truth, into seeing it for what it really is, and then it back through the crown into source consciousness, we really can have very little interference between us and the quantum field, or us and ourselves, let's be honest. Unfortunately for most of us, the crown is blocked by our addiction to the senses. As I mentioned before, not just the illusion of separation in the third eye, but our addiction to the materialistic world. As I say, nothing of the senses will ever satisfy the soul. So people that are fulfilled, feeling full the mind, feeling full the heart, fulfilled and connected to the field, knowing who they are and walking the path with wholeness and oneness and feeling beautiful from within, have a lot less need for external addictive behavior. They don't search that much external stimulus addictional behavior, because we're already feeling whole and full from within. So when we come to QLA and we surrender grief and sadness and guilt, and we open the heart and we let go of the lies and we do all these things, the byproduct of doing this work over and over again is just a raised awareness and raised consciousness, more love, more light, more gratitude, more seeing it on the way, not in the way. And of course, then we walk the path knowing truly more who we are. And eventually, it's not just, the crown is open and closed. It's more so to what degree the crown is open. Am I now fully connected? Am I fully present? Or am I more distracted in the head? But what you can really, and what you really achieve when you continue to do this work, is have the crown open all the time, unless there's traumas and other things that just bring that awareness straight from the crown straight down to fear again, down to 1 or 2. But you can walk the path awakened and conscious most of the time. And that's really the coolest thing, because you've heard the stories of people that say, oh, I can't believe it. I started breathing in the moment and doing what I love and helping people, and which AKA means the crown is open and you're connected to the field. And just crazy things happen. I got a check in the mail for $250,000, an old client of mine said. We're working now with some incredible people to put quantum living on an American TV show to hopefully be able to share this with people in America on national TV. So when your crown is open and you're connected and one with source, you will just download and achieve. Have you noticed these serendipities in life? When you're doing what you love and loving what you do, things just naturally happen. Things will just come into your path because you're in spirit. Listen, you're inspired. When you're inspired, your crown is open. When you know your purpose and you have a big why, and you walk this path, maybe even as a soulpreneur, for those of you who come to Bali, learn how to create a business doing this. But when you walk this path as an awakened being, loving what you do, coming from the heart through the truth of you and your unique way, seeing things for what they really are, now wanting to be of service when the crown opens, it's an incredible process of being in spirit. You don't need external motivation. You don't need external push of motivation when you're in spirit. That's when you look at people and go, how the fuck does he or she do what they do? How do they have that energy? How do they do that? I know, my friend, Dr. John DiMartini, incredible mentor, he did 480 presentations one year. And he even makes a joke, and he says, and I even made love to my wife once. I love that guy. But 400 presentations a year. I mean, how much? You're living on a plane. It's insane. But he did that, and he ate pretty clean. He got some chiropractic care and got well adjusted and moved his body somewhat. But man, his energy is limitless. And why? Because he was in spirit. He was inspired, drawn to it, not needing a push towards it. So the crown is blocked by our addiction to senses. So answer this question. What is it around you right now that you're addicted to? Are you afraid of letting go of that second PC or that, 5th pair of shoes? Is there something in your realm that you've got 5 motorbikes in the garage? Like, what are you hanging on to physically? And like my old mentor says, Espen, what you think you own, in fact, owns you, because it occupies time and space in the already busy mind. So what materialistic possessions that possess you and your energy can you get rid of now? Anything you haven't used for 6 months, as I say, gotta go. Give it to someone that really needs it, and feel into your heart the amount of gratitude for those people that receive it, so much needing it so much more than we do. So let go of any 3-dimensional possessions of the materialistic world that you're clinging onto. And when you first catch yourself being addicted to the senses, and just know that when you're in a stressful state of survival, there's 2 states. Remember Prita Ji and Krishna Ji? There's 2 states. There's a non-present, non-conscious, non-loving, non-joyful, non-productive state of which we're co-creating with the universe those things which you really don't want. That's the stress, fight or flight state. When you're in a fight or flight state, the byproduct of that is seeking external stimuli of wine and sex and drugs and Facebook and food, because we fucking don't feel great. And so when we move away from that state into the heart state with more and more quantum livings under your belt, you ascend your awareness, you literally upgrade the energetic frequency. We know it, it's been measured. It's not fucking woo-woo. You know, it's like, what's the emotional signature of, let's say, guilt? It's 30. What's love? It's 528. Well, if I say thank you, I love you, and truly depolarize the brain by knowing this happening for me, not to me, I've literally had a measurable increase, a measurable upgrade of 30 hertz to 528 hertz, or maybe 30 to 400. But even if you go from 30 to 300, you've 10x'd your vibrational frequency. Duh. How powerful. So the more we ascend, the more we breathe, the more we do the work, the more we review the curriculum, the more we do QLAs and get QLAs under our belt, the more we pop. And as I say, very important, the more we ascend into pure enlightenment and presence and being one, the more we got to engage in grounding practices, because we can't walk around with the head in the clouds, and we need to really, really, really ground. And that's important. So when the crown opens and we begin to become aware of who we are, we begin to connect back to the field. We find our purpose when we are ready to find our purpose, and knowing that it's there. If you haven't found it, it's there. You just got to give it some time and continue to bring your awareness to it and ask. Here's a little hack for you. With finding your purpose, try not to fight it. It's like anything in life. The more you try and control it, the more the universe is going to show you that you're not in control. So search for it, put your intention on it, fall asleep with that awareness in your brain and your hands on your heart with gratitude for knowing that it's there, but also the acceptance of not having it yet, not the need of attachment, but surrender it, and it'll come to you when you're ready, knowing that it is already within you somewhere, or ready for you when you are ready for it. And then we get rid of the addiction of the three-dimensional materialistic world. We give away the things that we don't need anymore to those people who need it. And we heal when we do that, when we serve. And then we look at the addictions of the senses, and we surrender those addictions by firstly letting go of the guilt, because now we understand why they're there. We don't go and blame ourselves for having a glass of wine or a bottle of wine. We actually see it for what it really is, and then go to the core emotion. As we spoke with Rosita before, what's the core emotion? She thought it was something, but it wasn't even fear. It was actually guilt on the bottom of it. She thought it was anger. Comes out as anger. Then we drop the fear. It's a fear. Then we drop the guilt. Now we get it. Now we're aware. And she's very conscious to be able to do that in less than 15 minutes. Let me tell you, that's really powerful. And then we look at it for what it really is. And then we understand that it comes from a lower vibrational state, and we upgrade it. Same thing with the crown. We let go of those senses. We know that we're feeling guilty. We're going to have a need to go and have some chocolate or sex or alcohol or Facebook or food, or whatever your vice is. We observe that vice and we surrender the vice, because we know that it's there, because we're not feeling whole and fulfilled from within. So we do another QLA, we meditate some more, we surrender from the need to have, we breathe into the crown. And as the crown opens and we become connected and one back again to the field, we find our purpose, we do what we love what we do, and then we can begin to walk the path of being of service. And then when you really take it one level up to what's called the Viapini, the soul star chakra, pure white divine light, as you breathe this little string that's kind of pulling you up behind the neck, the 8th chakra, number 8, all the way up. I think that's a lot of it, but I normally say it's about 35 chakras. You go all the way to the top, and you breathe white light all the way in to every single chakra, from every single chakra energy center out the auric field. And as you breathe within that auric field, you have a white bubble around you of pure white light protection. You keep your Teflon on, as I say, and you walk this path as an enlightened, loving, conscious being. That's the bottom line. That's the review for today, my friends. Let me just say, thank you so much. I love you so much. Legends, rock stars, from my heart to your heart, always a pleasure being here with you again in this moment. I'm truly and fully aware that we wouldn't have been able to do what we do without you. So I want you to never forget how much we love you and how grateful we are for each and every one of you, and feeling that for yourself and your own opportunity to live this magnificent life. I'm seeing so much love. I'm seeing so much contribution and gratitude and connection in the Facebook group. Everyone's just like, oh my God, and tagging and sharing and posting, and it's amazing. I want to say welcome to our new team member, Nicole. She's an opportunity. She's running our social media now. It's amazing with connecting people, answering questions, and helping people out. It's really quite incredible. So welcome, Nicole, and to each and every one of us. You know, we're coming up to, we're doing Perth soon, and after that we're going to be in every corner of the country every 6 months, and really excited about Bali, really excited about mastermind and medicine. So if you're feeling called, As I say, we're not offering this to anyone, and plant medicine is not something that you go and find. It's something that you research and sit with and meditate with and feel into. And when you're ready and feeling called, you may reach out to us and say, I'm really feeling called to do this work. It'll be 7 days. We're going to be in Vanuatu the first week of December, and we'll do the root chakra. We'll spend a whole day on surrendering fear, a whole day on just more movement and more like interactive tribal kind of fun stuff to let go of fear and move into physical health. And then we'll have a particular medicine designed for that, to surrender fear and step into health. And then the next day, I'll spend a whole day on the second chakra, and so on and so forth. The curriculum goes for a whole 7 days with both plant medicine, which is legal in Vanuatu, no problems there, and also the quantum living curriculum. And it's a very small group, it's a very intimate group. We're not going to open the registration. It's not going to be a landing page. It's not going to be for sale. But if you're feeling called, you can reach out to us on social media or send an email to admin at Dr. Espen. And reach out and express your interest, because I will be doing the work. I won't be just facilitating the work. I'll be actually healing myself, and I do that with the closest of family. And then we start next year on point. So there it is, my friend, again. Love you. Thank you. Don't forget next week, the third one. Yay, namaste, love you. Don't forget next week we're on again. Okay, so drop me a message. Any questions? Email your questions, either send them to social media or email them to support, S-U-P-P-O-R-T, support at drespen.com, and say hot seat and put in your question. The beautiful question today was, what happens with guilt and shame and anger? It's really, really awesome question. We'll pick those questions and we'll answer those questions for you. So if you have anything that you're wondering, send an email to support at Dr. Espen. We'll be able to choose the most important questions relevant to all of us, and hopefully we'll be able to answer your question. Don't forget to ask my favorite question, which is, what if the top is actually the bottom of your potential? I love you.